A lantern like this, I'll sell anywhere from $75 to $85. I have sold them at an AEW auction for $55. These are laminated with veneer. A solid one, I sell it for $35. It's not as much trouble to drill. The thing is, trying to line these squares up, it's awful hard to glue them, first of all, to make them square, and then second of all, to drill them exactly so they pass through the same hole. So you lose some just drilling them. And if you got a solid piece of wood, you don't have to worry about that. Where with the laminated, it's much more difficult because you want your drill bit to go straight through the middle of this line on each one of these. You don't worry about if this is 2 inches wide on one side and 1 3/4 on the other. It doesn't matter as long as you're drilling straight through the center of that line, that laminated line. And then the other thing you want to do is make sure that you're making your center right dead where that intersection is. I'll pass that around. We'll turn this after lunch. So anyway, you want to make sure you're squared up right there, not necessarily square where the blank is. That's the thing about doing veneers and laminates. You don't really have to have precision angles, but when you do drill or whatever, or try to find the centers, make sure you're finding the center of what you want. We're going to do one of these this afternoon. It's called a lantern ornament, and this is a laminated one. First ones I did, the bodies were all solid. This is a bloodwood, and to show you how fragile these are because they're so heavy, bloodwood's hard as heck when you're trying to turn it, but it dropped and chipped out a big chunk. So I've learned to make the edge of the roof on them a little bit thicker and also turn them down some. I still like to go up underneath them, but I probably won't do that so much today. I was messing around one day and saw an article in Wood Magazine way back where this guy had done a lantern ornament and he put a finial in and he came up with something very similar to that. It was a little more simple. It still had a roof to it. And the finials can be whatever shape you want. But he came up with something solid, and I thought that was kind of cool. And I made several of them, over time, and demoed them. And then along came veneers and some different colors of wood. So I thought, hey, man, that would really be cool to see what that'll do. If you look at the top of that ornament, it almost looks like the one that's laminated. It almost looks like a baseball on top of it. It's pretty cool because the pattern comes up really close. Here again, you want to, let's see, can you see that? You want to make your center right in the center of the intersection there, not from corner to corner, but just right where that square is in the middle, and the same on the bottom. And it's important that you get a good start with that. With a punch, right where that center is. You want that to line up as much as possible. Now, that just made a hole off to the side. There we go, that's better. Does anybody know how you can fix a piece if you ever make a hole way off your all slips or whatever? Fill it in with thick CA glue. I'm serious. Spray a little activator on it and leave it lump up. Then take some sandpaper and sand it down flush to the surface again. You got a hard enough surface that's actually harder than wood, and you can make your center again and put it in the right spot. The other alternative is to throw the whole piece away. I mean, this blank's worth $10 easy. I mean, just the wood alone, let alone me drilling it and everything. You guys have no idea how hard it is for somebody with my smarts to drill like this. This takes a lot of time. I'm not a very patient person when it comes to this kind of stuff. And if you don't drill these right, you end up with them meeting in all different directions. As a matter of fact, I think I've got the yellow one here. Yes. This is one that's at the top of the handout. And if you look at this one really close, you'll see I screwed up on the drilling, but I fixed it. And if you look at this one, from this angle, it tapers down. And from this angle, it tapers up. But you can't see it unless you know what's wrong with it. And that was done on purpose, y'all. You don't believe it, when you get one like that, you'll do the same thing. All right, so I've made my holes in here. This is done really easily. What I do is I cut two inch wide pieces of wood, or you can use a 2x2 blank and cut it down the middle. And then I glue a 1/4 inch piece in the center, or 3/8 or a 1/2 inch, whatever you want. And in this case, I put veneer on the side because it really makes it look cool when you start turning the edge of it. It really shows up. You can use different thicknesses. As a matter of fact, I get veneer from 3 places. The most consistent is SAURS veneer, SAUERS, and they're based in North Carolina, but they get veneer from everywhere. They're international. And they sell to almost every one of the wood turner supplies. They sell to Packard, they sell to Craft Supply, sell to Woodcraft, almost all of them. So, Rockler, all the people sell that stuff. And they sell not just the color veneers, but they sell burl and all kinds of stuff. So. But then there's another company called B&B Rare Woods, which I was talking to somebody a few minutes ago about. And they sell veneer too. They sell 1/32 and 1/64 inch thicknesses. And they'll sell odd sizes because they're doing the trim-offs and selling you their what people call cut-offs in the lumber industry. And they'll be different sizes. They'll have pieces 3 inches wide by 26 or 27 or 38 inches long, and they'll price it and so forth. Most of their stuff, because they're odd sizes, they'll sell for around $3, $3.25 a square foot. You're talking a 32nd inch thick, so you're talking a lot of money for a board foot, but you're not using board feet, you're using square feet. They're cheaper than SAURS, but SAURS is much more consistent thickness and color-wise. And you can buy from SAURS, you can buy pieces that are 8 inch by 1 foot, or you can buy pieces that are 1 foot that are 2 feet long, and they have packets of those. They sell, if you buy them from SAURS, I think they may run you $3 or $4 less than if you buy them from Packard or somebody like that. But when you combine orders with some of these wood turning companies, you can save money because a lot of times they'll give you free shipping if you buy like $75 worth or so. But that means tools and everything. So you don't have to buy $75 worth of veneer. You can buy I buy B&B when I can't afford to get up enough order for a SAURS order, because they'll charge the same amount. They charge like $7.95 no matter whether you're buying one little piece or something 3 feet or 4 feet long. And their colors are really good for what they show on the website, but they don't have 20 colors that are different and are very consistent color-wise. They'll have a green, they'll call it light green, brown, or it may be a green like this. It's really a pretty forest green, but sometimes it's kind of olive or drab. But their reds and blacks and oranges and yellows are real consistent as far as color goes. The other thing I buy is it's almost an 1/8 inch thick veneer from a company called Roar Rocket. But anyway, the Roar Rocket I use a lot of times when I'm doing like seam rippers or pepper mills or rolling pins or something like that, because I get a little bit wider piece of wood in there. And the thing that really makes all veneers show up is when you get a curve on it. Then you're spreading the color out. It's like those, it's like the ornaments that we were doing just a little bit ago. You can see on these circles, unlike up at the top where you get a straight cut almost across there, it looks like the veneer is 2 or 3 times as wide, because you're getting a curve, so you're cutting off on a radius cut instead of straight across. There would be a straight cut, and there would be your radius cut coming across there. So your veneer looks a lot wider when you're making curve cuts. If you're doing, say, a bowl or a plate or something, you could be using 1/32, and it'd be almost 1/8 of an inch wide when you make your nice curve on the inside or the outside, just because it's spreading that veneer color. It's not doing a thing different. It's just that you're cutting such an angle on it that you get more of the veneer showing. After I do these, I glue these together. I use Type Bond 3 on these. I glue these together in basic clamps usually. And I'll do the first gluing, which is going to be this one right here. I'll do those 18.5 inches long, because it's not hard to keep it square. The next one I'll do is I'll cut my veneer and I'll cut my 1/4 inch filler blank, and I'll hold those together and cut them on my chop saw so that I've got 6 inch long pieces like that. Then I'll cut those in half on the table saw, glue the same variety, or I can change colors if I want to, into there. But now I use either a wood vise clamp, or wood vise, or a drill clamp, or drill press vise, some people call it. I have used Bessie clamps, a parallel, but you've got to make sure these things get square. If these are not perfectly square cut, when you press them into a vise or whatever, they're going to slide. Wherever the narrow edge is going to push the wide place away. And so you've got to make sure that these line up perfectly. Otherwise, you're not going to get that nice cross. Nice cross. Okay? Once you've glued those together and they've gotten good and dry, then you want to make sure you're drilling your hole right dead in the center. And I drill it 2 inches down. So I mark all my pieces at 2 inches all the way around with a square, so that I know where my 2-inch line is supposed to be. And then I'll line up my drill press, because sometimes when I'm squaring these up, you've got to have a nice square edge to line this up against your drill press. So you've got to run it through the table saw again. And sometimes I'll end up with 2 inches, like this one's 2 inches. This is 2 7/8, or 1 7/8, I'm sorry. But I want to have the hole drilled in the center of this middle here. Otherwise, when I go through, I'm going to have one side here and one side way over on this side when I'm going through them. So I want to go through those, and these have to be square for that to happen. You can see some of these are a touch off. You're not going to notice that small amount. The main thing you're looking for is when you get through drilling, you want to be able to feel that hole go fairly smooth on all 4 drill marks. The question is, when you're drilling through, do you drill all the way through? I use a 1 1/8 inch Fosner bit. 1 1/8 inch. I set my drill press so that I'm going to drill, when I get through drilling to the bottom where I want, I'm going to see, first of all, yellow and orange, and then I'm going to see a little bit of red, and I'm going to see yellow and orange, and I'm going to see a little bit of red again, and I'll stop. So I'm drilling about 2/3 of the way through, almost to the bottom of this hole right here, or the edge of this hole. I'll drill this side and then this side to make sure I'm lining these up. And if I can rub my finger through there fairly smoothly without a big ridge, that's a good drill. Then I'll turn and I'll do the other side, especially if I've got a narrow and a wide blank. So it's not square 2 by 2. If you end up with these 2 by 2, you're a darn good wood turner, and you should be doing more woodworking than you are wood turner. The goal, like I said, is for you to put your finger in there, and it pretty much just slide right over like there's no bumps or anything. That's going to turn out well. And it doesn't take much when you make a thin edge like that. So I would recommend, if you're taking the class or if you're doing some of these later on, to make the roof a little bit wide at the edge. You can round it over. It's still going to look thin. Now, in the article in Wood Magazine, I think it was in 93 or 94, the guy had also drilled a 2-inch hole through this part, the 2-inch depth, for his finial. Well, I like to, because I'm doing these veneers and I'm going through the center of this part. I like to drill that on the lathe. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in my step center, or you can use a drive center, doesn't matter, and my live center down here. Now this piece is 6 inches long. This can be 2 inches. If you just want to make a round ball, you don't have to make a lantern. You can just make a round ball. You can actually drill holes that are big enough in here to put a small, like a glitter ornament. Or I have hung little, I think I may have one over there that has a little dove hanging in it. You can hang stuff from it. You can glue stuff in there, whatever. I usually slide up a finial and make a flame of some kind. But you can hang things inside here if you want to, or you can stand something up like a little Santa Claus or a little Christmas tree or a cross or something like that. You can do whatever you want to with this thing. But you don't have to have it as a lantern. This is just the lantern ornament. You can make this thing a ball and do the same thing. Or you can make, 2 points on the end of it. It's no problem. The main thing you want to do is Now, this is 6 inches long, so I'm going to put my finial on this end, and I can make 2 or 3 roofs out of this thing. I'll probably make 1 or 2, because it gets kind of tight up here when you start making 3, but it's not hard to do, and it doesn't look weird. It's amazing. It looks pretty cool to have more than 1 roof on it. So the first thing I want to do is round this over, or get it trued up. And let me say this one time, and I'll probably say it 2 more. Once you get this tight in the tailstock, lock it down. Do not dare tighten this thing up after you start turning it, because these ribs are going to get thinner and thinner, and they're not going to hold any kind of pressure when you start turning this just a little bit. If it's slipping, you need to tighten your chuck up. So that's why I'm going to make a tenon on here after I round it up and put it on the tenon. Put it in the chuck. So, this is Paduke and Yellow Heart with some red veneer. Now, I'll tell you a little secret I do. When I have a piece that's wider one side than is the other, I pretty much work really lightly over the ribs until I see what I'm getting. So I'll show you. I'll cut it off a couple times probably. The other thing is, since the ribs are a lot of void, you have a tendency to go in and you'll make them thin not wanting to. I'm going to go ahead and cut a tenon on here. I don't usually, as a general practice, get everything completely rounded down when I'm going to put a tenon on it. I like to go ahead and get a tenon on. And then when I true it up, I know I'm truing it up to what the tenon's gripping. Paduke is a fairly soft wood and has a kind of a sweet smell to it. It also sands really easy, but it makes a real fine orange dust, and it'll stain the heck out of your clothes. So if you wash your clothes, the only thing I found to keep it from getting stained in it is Tide. Gain won't touch it. None of the less expensive like Costco brand and Sam's brand stuff. They don't get the color out. So. Look at there. Right dead in the center. All right, so we're down as far as we're going to get. Hang on one second. I'm getting a little squeal. There we go. It's probably because of the way I put it in there. But anyway, we're dead in the center like we were before. It's turning true. I'm going to go ahead and get it down to round. Come over those ribs a little bit. I'm not pushing the same as I was on the ends. And it's still going down. You can see. I guess you can see. Yeah, you can tell. Now, honestly, I turn these things to 3200. You're doing voids, you don't want to have a problem with your tool going in and out. And if you're turning fast enough, you don't even know there's voids there. I can see the voids, you can see it. You can just see it in the video. You probably start picking up the smell of the Paduke. See, now I'm looking at my ribs. They're all pretty even. They're all somewhere around a ½ inch wide. What I'm looking for with these is once I get this thing round all the way, I've got a couple of flap spots on the widest part. Once I get that round, I need to look at what my thinnest rib is. That is going to be my widest rib from then on. I'm never going to make any smaller ribs than that. Okay? Probably took half my rib depth off right then, or width, when I went over it. See what we got. Yeah, I'm down to about 3/8 now. I'm going to square up the end of it. Okay. Alrighty. Check and see what we got. We got a little bit of a flat on these two ribs, but I can work with that a little bit when I start rounding them over and making the bead there. I'm going to use a spindle gouge and give myself a little bit of a cove right here. For me, that's a little bit of a confidence builder, because I get a nice smooth cut there and makes me feel a little more relaxed when I go back towards those. Now, what I want to do and what I do when I'm doing this, I like to give myself, a little bit of a place to stop, like I was doing a carving or something. But I want to give myself enough room so I can make that bead come on over the side. So I'm going to go about 3/8 of an inch out from the end of the void. I'm going to make myself a V cut. All right. You know, when you're making a V-cut, you really can't go but about a 1/16 of an inch into the wood, because the wedge of your skew stops you from going very deep. So you have to keep widening out your V. All right, now I want to go ahead and try to make that bead across there without making my ribs any smaller. So I'm going to do this really slow since I've got a slow lathe here. And I'm going to bring it around. I'll go the other way some. I'm rolling the gouge, rolling the flute, but I'm also bringing the handle just a little bit this way to keep my radius going. See my handle going around? The other thing I like to do is I like to have my finger where the flute or the tool is. Then I know where my cut's going. If I'm going to the left, I need my finger on the top. If I'm going to the right, I need my finger on the side so I can flip. I can't go like this, so I have to put it on the side. Unless I'm using my left hand, which I'm amphibious, so I can use either one. This is where, if you're going at a faster speed, it's a little easier not to have any ripples. But you want to follow that bevel as much as you can around when you start making that radius cut. We've got a little tool mark right there, and it's quite a dip. I want to see what it looks like when I cut the lathe off instead of keep on going at it. Now, to go in there deeper, I can take this tool and I'll be able to go straight in against that edge. But I want to try to get a round edge on this, or a round bead on this, as soon as I can. I'm doing light cuts, you can hear it. Till I get on solid wood, and then I can bear down. I really don't care about the holes. They're just a hole right now. I could just as well make this an oval or an egg shape with the holes in there. So I've got a little more of an invert here, or a slow radius on this side than I do on the other side. And that may be kind of interesting. I don't particularly care for it. That's a little better match. Got a dull tool here. Had to find the sharp spot. One thing you learn when you're teaching people how to turn is you learn what sounds mean, and eventually you catch what a dull tool sounds like. It sounds like something going like that. And what happens is when it's starting to make bumps, it's like a tire going up a gravel driveway. Once it gets a rut in it, makes more ruts because it keeps vibrating or bumping the tire. All right, you see what my ribs look like? This could take quite a bit of pressure off here, but not a real good idea. You can make them actually thinner, but I like this. And if I want to make them thinner, I can do it really fast with some, I would not start any smaller than 120 sandpaper, but you roll it up, put it in the hole, take all those edges off, and it's going to make the ribs smaller just doing that. So this is a good diameter for them. And the other thing is, you can take a little strip of sandpaper like this and catch that rough edge on the inside, using it like you would a rasp. Now you don't have to do that, but you can make them almost round if you want to do that, or you can just take the edges off rounding them by sanding, just going up and down. I like to use a tube because then you can just go up and down in the thing and you can make it the exact same size as the hole is. Okay? So that's the hardest part for me, is always getting that round and then sanding it like I want it. So if I'm going to do, say I'm going to sand this and get it on up to about 600, 800 grit, I'll usually have a longer piece of sandpaper, move my tool rest, I'll turn the lathe speed down a little bit and I'll just come along here like this. You got to hold the sandpaper tight. If the sandpaper's loose, what you're going to do is start making the ribs smaller on one side than you will on the other. But you can always turn the lathe in reverse and do that. But see, every time I'm sanding, there's my smallest rib. It's getting smaller, and so are the others. But you saw what I started at. I started at 3/8, and I'm already down to a 1/4 inch on this one. So you have to be careful not to go too far when you're just rounding over or truing up your wood. You want some wood left on your ribs because you can make them smaller easy by just sanding. So far it looks like the lines are running true right through the middles on that. Okay? Now, if you notice, this is wider here than it is up top. This is going to be my top. And it'll look weird for this to be wider than the top is. It might be okay for it to be even, but it should probably be a little bit smaller. So I'm going to make this smaller diameter and take that square off of it, or the flat spot. And I'm going to make this a very simple base. Oh, guys, you know what I've done. I didn't drill my half-inch hole. We'll see how strong this wood is. Remember, I got to go all the way to there. So you want to bet or not? Nobody want to bet? This is the hardest wood, the yellow heart, against the Paduke. It's getting hot. Question is, will the yellow heart crack like the red heart? Not as easy, no. It does get a nice sulfur smell to it, though. It has a lot of sulfur in it, and I think that's why it doesn't rot or change color very much. It makes beautiful bowls. Oh man, look at that. Went through there. No problem at all. Yeah, there you go. You believe I probably put more pressure on it right then than that drill bit did. This is where, oh, look at it. Did you see that? Daggum, this tool, I'll tell you. Oh, man. I told you that was the tool's fault, the first one, right? It actually is dull, or not that's the tool's fault, but. Does anybody know why that catch occurred? Because I've got flute wings on each side. When I go into the wood, if I go at an angle and there's a piece of wood up on this side higher, I'm going to catch here before I catch here. And every time that's going to be my unsupported cut. So as soon as I catch it, pulls the tool that way. And so you want to, if you're ever making an angle cut, start with the flute closed like that. Make a little step and then open up your flute and go ride the bevel. So this is one of those do as I say, not as I do. Now you want to see what the veneer does. I don't know if you can see, but down here at the bottom, the point of that veneer is very, very sharp here and not so sharp right there, and that's just because it's not centered exactly. I've never seen it where I got it exactly, but it still looks pretty cool when you see that pattern come together. It would be nice, though, I mean, if every time you did it, you ended up with that sharp angle. Sharp point. Okay? So, I want to make this a little bit of an indentation here. So I'm going to use my parting tool. And I like to have my cut supported as much as possible. Never move your tool rest while the laser's on. Get rid of that burnishing, or at least some of it. I think instead of going wide on there, I'm going to just make a cut. If I don't have my tool mark, I think that's going to look pretty cool. Just having a line there. Yeah, that's not bad. I'm going to do it simple. You can make beads. You can make all kinds of designs on this. Next thing I'm going to do is make a roof up here. And I'll just do one. The question is, have I ever used a vortex tool? Oh, you're talking about like the bead tools or the cove tools she makes? I'm sure you could. I mean, that'd be a perfect tool to go up under here and cut that. Oh, I'm sure it is. The three tools I've seen that she has are kind of grabby. The cove tool and the kind of point tool. The kind of point tool I've seen has a long bevel to it. And that makes it real grabby. Plus, it makes it awful hard to control it. Because when it goes in, it doesn't have anything supporting it. I can only go so far up in there, but it looks kind of cool when you have a little indentation under the roof rather than having the roof just a little notch there, and that's it. I like to have the roof just have a little bit of a cove in it if it's going to be a single roof. But if I was going to do a double roof, I'd want to start my extra roof right here. And just do it. This is just a diamond parting tool. You can use a non-diamond. Yep. Oops. I meant to do that because I couldn't see from all the dust. Can you guys see anything with the dust flying? And you can see I'm making some pretty good cuts except for the outside edge of it. I'll pass this around in a few minutes. I need to clean this roof up a little bit right here. And this one I'll clean up the same way, and that's from the end grain getting torn. But that's not hard to fix. And you're going to sand a little bit. As I'm making that cut, I need to fade it because I can't get but so far up underneath. Now this has enough for me to make a 3-pitch roof, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to get rid of some bulk. Now this is, up in here, you can have a really cool looking ending if you make a sphere out of it. Somewhere. I got another box. Just trying to get a little bit of a sphere here. Now, this being a demo and being Paducah like it is, I'm not going to sand, but I'm going to go ahead and part this off, and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about by a little ball or a little baseball look. It's not truly a baseball, y'all. I mean, you baseball aficionados will be able to see right through it right off, but it does look pretty cool. It may be a little wide at the bottom. Oh, I cut all the way through all my red. I'm sorry. Because my yellow heart's so wide, but get that little deal. If I'd have left it wider, it was because of the spiral with the skew, but I'd have had red on 4 little sides. Looked pretty cool. And that wouldn't take any time to sand if you sand it while you're working it. And that you can actually put on a jam chuck and sand it from that point. So it's still not a bad piece, even though it's a demo piece. All right, so the next thing, I usually do a contrasting finial. One contrast. And I do a finial like the inside inserts. But you can do them any color you want. And you could use purple heart or red, or you could use another Paducah or whatever. All right. So next thing I want to do is turn a finial for that. I'm going to use a 5-inch piece of yellow heart that's about don't know, 7/8 by 7/8. You can go almost a 1/2 inch by a 1/2 inch if you want to. You're trying to match up that hole, but you also need enough so that you can cover up that end bit. And you can taper that down more. You can make beads. You can make all different kinds of designs of it. All right. Need to go a little smaller. Taper this in a little bit. See what I need to do. All right. Anybody ever done that before? Yeah, it just gives you an idea. It'll burnish the end of your dowel or your finial that you're turning and give you an idea what diameter it needs to be. Probably easier to get the same diameter all the way, but it makes it so smooth, you know. You may have to add more glue because of that. And look at it, just slid on way too easy. Just way too easy. You know, so with this, a lot of times I'll make an orange flame or something like that if I want to. So then I have to make this a little bit shorter. But this I'm going to do a yellow flame on the tip. And I'll make it a little bit longer because it stopped about right there, I think. And I want to have a little flame on there and have it up in the top of it. So I'll go ahead and do that. See if I can do it without making a lot of noise. It's not because I don't want you to see what I'm doing. It's so I'm hiding any mistakes I make. So I need to see how deep I can go here before I continue. I can go another 6 or 7 inches. I'll fool you. You saw me have a catch a while ago, didn't you? All right, that looks pretty good. And I don't know where my other blank is, but that's what I'm going for. I want my candle to show. Can you see that? Yes, please. Can you see that? So it's about, I don't know, probably 1/8 of an inch or so from the top of the lantern there. Now, oddly enough, if I was going to hang a bird in here, I'd try to drill a hole from here all the way into that section, which means you got to have a long, thin drill bit. It's kind of hard to do, but it makes the bird line up better than trying to drill something this way. You can drill and stick something up in there and then bend the wire or whatever, and that works. What I'm doing here, I'm coming into my candle and I'm giving myself a stop here. Well, this needs a little more of a taper, so when I glue this together, I'll probably sand it some. To turn the rest of this, the finial part, I know this is going to stop in my lantern right here at the stop point. So I turn this around and use that stop. I notice you all have been watching me measure things really precisely. Yeah. When I say I use scrap wood, I seriously use scrap wood. Give us all. Yeah, there you go. Do you know you have one in your hand when you got a roughing gouge? You take your roughing gouge, you come at a very small angle, and you pull it backwards. Blade going fast. And it's a negative rate. It'll make it just slick as glass. It won't do it going forward. You get a good clean cut, but if you come backwards at an angle, in a small step straight, it'll give you a nice smooth surface. All right, I'm going to do sort of I've got a point of the tool wrist, the live center in here, so I want to come off of that. Just coming down here making a sort of reverse teardrop. It looks pretty good for right off the tool. Not bad for freehand and no measurement. See it? I'd probably jam shut the end of that and taper that coat just a little bit more so it blended in with the finial better. But that's what we do with that.